Hi, my name is Camille Wright, and I'm going to be your guide through Chapter 24, which is called Defining Action Research as an Instructional Strategy in Teacher Education by Frances O'Connell Rust and Susan Hansen. Lights, Camera, Action Research. You'll remember action research from 511 last semester. This chapter applies action research as its own instructional theory, just like constructivism and folk belief theory. Chapter 24 describes action research as a way for teachers to observe, reflect, and improve on their own practices through a systematic data collection and analysis similar to empirical research. This is why you see a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge, as it represents how action research bridges research and practice. It allows teachers to step outside and observe their teaching and is effectively a bidirectional bridge between theory and everyday practices. According to Zeichner and Tabachnik, action research is instrumental, it is academic, and it is critical. It's instrumental in that it improves teaching and student learning. It's academic in which it contributes to the ongoing body of research and education, and it is critical, which means that it allows teachers to question and critique their work. So, this type of research is qualitative, which means that it's based on data that's observational and can't exactly be quantified. However, the people conducting the research are the teachers themselves, who lead their research in their own classrooms. It is still a systematic process that is similar to empirical studies, just on a smaller, more practical scale that is a long-term process. Both student teachers and seasoned veterans in the classroom should be asking questions about how to improve in order to keep their teaching relevant, responsive, and effective. So this is how to apply action research. After I discuss these steps, I'll provide an example. Part 1 of action research is to ask questions which may come from realizing a problem or simply spur from curiosity. For instance, you may notice a problem where students mix up their B's and D's in their handwriting. Then you might wonder if there are solutions that will help this. Or if there's no problem and you're just curious about something, you may wonder whether students who are listening to a story, if having them play with Play-Doh while they're listening to story time will help them focus, sit quietly, and remember important details after. Step 2 is to collect data, such as test results or observational notes. Step 3 is to examine your findings and see if the results lead to a potential answer or solution. Once reflection has occurred, part 2 is to redo the process. This is to solidify findings and see if the solution is working. The first step of part 2 is implementation. The second step is secondary data collection. Then finally, step 3 is to re-examine. Okay, so in my first example, suppose that Sharon is a first grade teacher and she notices that the majority of her students don't automatically know their multiples of 5. Step 1 would be for her to ask questions, such as which students don't know their multiples of 5, or would singing a song about the multiples of 5 help them remember them? Then she would turn these questions into a specific guiding hypothetical research question, such as will singing a song about counting help students remember and improve test scores? In order to carry out this experiment, she would create a design on how to facilitate it and how to collect data. In order to do this, Sharon might give students a pre-quiz where they write as many numbers as they know in multiples of 5. And she would look at this worksheet to see if they could count very high or if she could count them accurately, meaning that they know what counting by 5s is. Then she could record a video of the class while they were singing a counting by 5 song. Lastly, she would give the students a post-test in order to collect data. To examine the data, she could compare the pre-tests and post-tests to see whether students' scores improved after the students learned the counting song. She could also look at the video she took and go back to see which students were engaged during the song and which students looked like they weren't really sure about which number came next. If she found that the song really helped the students learn their numbers, she might decide that she wants to implement it and have them sing the song every single morning during morning meeting. Then she would collect more data by doing another test and see if students could even count higher this time, or if students were way more accurate. Then she would examine to see if, hey, maybe singing songs will help students remember information in other subjects, such as a song about science, and so on. Another example I have is of a teacher named Nico. Nico noticed in his 4th grade class that students had a hard time focusing during science. Whenever he would go to read students' daily science journals, he would see that students weren't really giving very complete write-ups and summaries of that day's experiments. Even the students he knew that were strong writers were giving incomplete entries, so he wondered what changes he could make. He asked questions by thinking about the time of day he did science with his students, and wondered if it was difficult for them to focus because he always taught science right before lunch. So he decided he would try something out, and he swapped PE and science so that science was right after snack and then PE was what came right before lunch. To start, he just did this for one day. He collected data by asking students to vote on an online survey about whether they preferred to have PE before or after science. He also collected data by observing how engaged students seemed during science and the completeness of their lab journal entries. Upon close examination of the data he collected in Part 1, he concluded that it was better to have science before PE. This is because the journal entries for the day that he switched the two subjects were of a higher quality than prior days. His students also said in the survey that they personally thought that they learned better in science when it was right after recess. So Nico decided to move on to Part 2. He implemented this strategy by teaching science right after recess every day. After 2 weeks, he had students complete another survey to see if they still preferred it. He also collected their science journals and saw that the quality continued to improve overall. Therefore, as a result of action research, Nico was able to rework his daily schedule in order to improve learning outcomes for his students. Because he kept records, he was also able to share this strategy with his colleagues. The qualitative data that teachers can collect for action research include formal observations, interviews, diaries and written records, sample work, assessment data, audio and video recordings, photos, and surveys. There are a lot of ways teachers can do this now, as there is access to different technologies that have these capabilities, such as iPads and apps. These types of evidence can be stored, shared, and systematically analyzed to help answer an inquiry. They go a long way in describing a problem to someone who can be of help, because as they say, a picture tells 1,000 words. Now think about how many words it would tell if you had pictures, videos, and test scores. As I mentioned, iPhones, smartphones, and other tablets can be very useful in action research. These are examples of types of technology that can help teachers record their data and keep it safe. There are many note-taking apps such as Notability and Evernote that can store pictures and notes and organize them in an easily downloadable format. There is also a robot called a swivel that helps teachers record their lesson. It's a robotic dock that, when you stand up your iPad on it, will swivel automatically to point toward wherever the teacher is in the classroom. This works because it is connected to a wearable microphone that tells the mount which way to turn in order to keep the teacher in view of the recording. This is helpful for teachers who don't have someone reliable that can film their lessons for them, or for when they want to record for a long time but don't want to have to put someone through recording for that long. The art of reflection. Dewey emphasized a thorough and careful and critical process for teachers in the reflection of their teaching practices. The reflection process allows change to ultimately occur. It involves suggesting possible outcomes, an intellectualization of the problem, formulation of a hypothesis, elaboration and reasoning, and hypothesis testing. According to Lyons, the task for the professional is to know how to frame the problem, not even to solve it, but to frame it so that it could be solved. We as teachers need to be able to acknowledge issues that we see and frame it so that it can be solved, rather than seeing it as something that will never change or simply must be dealt with. For example, if a teacher noticed that students could never keep their desks organized and were always losing their papers, if she didn't have an immediate solution how to fix this, she might just accept it and have to deal with students not knowing where to locate their materials, which would not be good. Instead, what she could do is ask herself what can be done to change students' behavior so that their desks are more organized. Then she opens the door of possible solutions to come her way. She frames it so that it could be solved. Implications for instruction. It's important for action research to occur within a community of practice, which allows teachers to support each other and collaborate in an ongoing fashion. Sharing experiences and providing feedback helps teachers be more successful. An example of how schools can achieve this is by having regular PLC meetings among grade levels where teachers can discuss problems that they see and design a solution together. It is likely that teachers will experience similar issues and be able to help one another grow as a result. They may have already conducted action research on a given problem and have an immediate solution to try out. It is important for teachers to foster trusting working relationships for the benefit of themselves and for their students learning in this way. Conclusions. Action research helps teachers be mindful and become ongoing learners themselves as they gain new insights from their research. Action research can push individual learning communities forward to better the profession as a whole. The benefits include better teaching, better instruction for the students, opportunities for collaboration, personal development. It's for all teachers regardless of experience. It's a practical application of theory. You get the chance to identify and solve your own problems. It produces shareable findings. It contributes to the profession. And it allows for more creativity and innovation in your teaching. As John Dewey said, arriving at one goal is the starting point to another. On the next slide, you'll find the questions for your critical response. So questions for your response are, number 1, what is necessary for action research to be effective, and what are the benefits of using action research? I know that there are many benefits that I listed, so you do not have to say all of them. Feel free to just list a few and concentrate on the ones that you think are most important or what you think is important for action research to be effective. Number 2 is, have you ever seen action research in action? Tell us about an experience from student teaching or elsewhere, including your personal impressions. So, what was the problem? What did the teacher do? How did they collect data? And what was the result? And if they implemented it, did their re-examination and their second collection of data support their original findings? And number 3 is, if you haven't seen action research firsthand, describe a problem or wonderment that you have witnessed in student teaching or elsewhere. Then create a guided question and design how you would apply action research in order to solve this problem or wonderment. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day.